everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. And today we're doing
Witchouse 2, Blood Coven. And now this is another one where we had to replace something in the full moon week. But it's really funny because, Safi, we didn't have to replace the original choice, but we really had to. Because they didn't take it off of Tubi. However, the movie that Safi picked out, Tomb of Terror, apparently it's a compilation of 3 other movies that they just edited into an anthology movie. And I thought that's stupid because we could just watch those 3 other movies separately. You know, we don't want to watch them edited down to anthology segments. That's fucking retarded. Safi, talk towards the camera.
No, we don't.
She, even when she's facing away on purpose, like she's scared of the camera. So I decided to replace it with Witchouse 2 because we really liked the first one last year. It was a very fun movie. It had some good effects. It had some good shots in terms of, it looked like a good horror movie with the lighting, and it was a ton of fun. And I would say it's one of the better full moon movies that I've seen, regardless of, a lot of people hate it. I really liked it.
Do you think this one was better than that one, or that one's
No.
better than this one? Okay, that's what I thought.
This movie was a huge downgrade. It was like, I don't know how to describe, what if you drank Dr. Pepper and then somebody handed you water with brown sugar and they say, look, it's Dr. Pepper. Kind of like there's this really funny MasterChef Junior where this little kid, this little shithead who didn't deserve to be in the finale, he made something so egregious that it should have been like an automatic elimination. And they had to make chicken and waffles, and he took, instead of using maple syrup, he took water and brown sugar and boiled it a little bit and said that was maple syrup.
Ugh.
And that's what this movie was. You have real maple syrup, and then you have brown sugar and water.
Oh.
Safi.
Gross.
You like brown sugar or white sugar?
I don't care. Either one.
So what do you think about Witchouse 2, Safi?
Marco, would you please stop it?
Witchouse 2, Blood Coven.
Well, there were a lot of really good scenes in it with ugly witches and...
People can't hear you, Safi.
For God's sakes. Okay, I'll stand closer.
Yeah. I mean, you're holding on to a pole, you're fucking...
Because I don't like standing and doing
It's a Wonderful Life. You're in It's a Wonderful Life where he's holding on to the pole. Or what's that movie where the guy holds on to the pole on the street and he yells at people and he says, "Hey everybody, Witchouse 2 was pretty bad."
Well, there were a lot of good effects and there were a lot of not a lot, but I mean there were several, and there was ugly witches, and there was black magic, and but what was really odd to me, and I didn't say anything to Marco, but it sounded like they were supposed to solve it in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And that is just not real.
It
Nobody does that.
And to me, it reminded me a bit of Rose Red, where they go to the house and then they're doing all these experiments, and then the main experimenter gets possessed, or she turns evil. Remember that? That's what happened in Rose Red.
Well,
so
I don't know. They were supposed to be researching and trying to figure out the identities of bodies or burials they had found that were dated. The bones were dated back to the 17th century, or was it the 18th century?
Yeah, because they wanted to tear the witch house down, and
build a mall.
I thought that it was actually a good story idea, but the way that it was executed was pretty terrible for the most part. It starts off and they're like ripping off the Blair Witch, where they're doing this stupid found footage thing.
It was a boy and a girl.
There's like this girl who wants to have sex, and then he's just like messing around, and it's just so queer and so it was such a drop in quality from the first movie. And it's like, oh, just because the Blair Witch was popular means you're gonna turn the sequel into the Blair Witch? Like, that's shitty. Because the first Witchouse, you should have stayed true to that one. Because it was good.
That was Bernie.
That was our cat giving his review of the movie.
He didn't particularly like it. He only likes coal and marmalade, 2 YouTube cats. One of them passed away.
Hey Bernie, what did you think of zombie strippers from hell? He liked that one.
Well, anyway, it was I don't know why they were there. I can't remember. I guess just to goof around, and she wanted to have sex.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be there, though. He didn't feel right there.
And then they both get killed.
And they both got butchered.
And that's when the real story happens, where this group of generic modern people, and I swear to God, it's the same old formula with these shitty 2000s movies where you show a scene from the past where something happens bad, and then they jump to modern day and they show modern people. And oh, look, it's modern this and modern that. And one of the modern things in this movie was the music.
Oh,
the
God.
music was so awful.
I don't even know what it was.
It was like music that Jim would play in the car. That's how bad it was.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
That's what he used to play.
Bull.
When he drove in that gray car.
I'm talking about his older brother.
Yeah, he used to play. See, that's what I mean by modern music, is that back in the 2000s, they thought it would be smart to just date everything, because then people of that time would feel like it's their movie, like the Blair Witch. And so you had all these movies that would immediately date themselves and make themselves irrelevant in like 5 years, because they had to play this terrible music, have these terrible characters, and a terrible story. Safi.
Well, the music was, they were, in this team, there was this boy, and he was visiting. Say boy, he was in his 20s. And then you had this girl who was in her 20s. She was on the research team. And he was just visiting. So, but anyway, their job was to go into town and do archival research. And like I said, I have done research a million times. You can't do it all in a day. And you can't do lab work in a day. Because things pop up that you don't know are going to pop up. And I mean, it isn't right. And I just can't stand that. They could have just left it open-ended. And I know they wanted him to hurry because of this mall, but why even bother if they're not going to do it right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they needed months, but I mean more than a day. And so...
it was a good idea, though. Like, I like that idea. I thought that was actually an interesting concept. The one thing that I really liked about the movie that I will say is its biggest pro is that in the first movie, they don't really have a town at all that they talk about, and they just act like the Witchouse is just its own thing. It's out of town. Who cares?
Yeah, like in the countryside somewhere.
But in this movie, the town is a part of the story, and so I actually really liked that. I thought that was a great thing to add to a sequel. It's just too bad that it wasn't good. Because like most of it's just complete trash. It was a struggle to watch it, especially after watching a bad movie right before and Unlucky Charms.
Well, what I was saying, they play this horrible piece of music, and I say out of the whole movie, this if you watch this car music that they played, car ride music, it's so bad. It was almost like chalk grating or a fingernail scraping along a chalkboard. It was just awful. And just to say who was on the other part of the team, there was the main professor, of course, leading the research team. Then there were 2 women and a man. So they were left back to do the analysis in the lab. And
can you do like an impression of the music? Like,
no.
What did the music sound like?
It sounded so horrible. I've never heard it before.
It was like it
was a lot louder. And it was the same thing over and over and over again.
Modern music.
And it was just hard to, it's hard to pay attention to anything else when you're so annoyed by whatever you're seeing or whatever you're hearing.
And they played that music throughout the movie. Like, even in the final fight, they were playing, like, modern music while people are fighting for their lives. So the music was terrible. The movie looks terrible. Everything is terrible. I mean, except for ideas and certain scenes.
I know, it just floors Marco and me that, you have movies that have such good ideas, and all they had to do was make a few little twists and turns and tweaks, and it would have been so much better.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I don't know if they're too lazy, they don't know what those would be because they're not experienced enough, or they just don't, or they don't care. I don't know what it is, but it drives us up the wall. Because there could be so much more creativity and interest, and this is our well, I have a lot of different jobs, and actually Marco has a few too, but I mean we're spending an amount of time to watch this movie and to review it, and it's the same with everybody else, and it's just like we want to have our time worthwhile spent doing something worthwhile.
Yeah, that's
meaningful.
That's the thing. Just because this movie is an hour, because movies can't be more than an hour, or else audiences will get bored. That's the full moon idea.
God.
That's the full moon. That's what the guy believes, is that you can't make a movie longer than an hour and 10 to 20 minutes because that's boring. And it's like, well, I don't think people should be making movies for retards. Like, that's like something that like a retarded modern audience member would have to say, like, I can't watch a movie if it's longer than an hour and 20 because I need to do stuff. And it's like, fuck off. Like, people watch movies and they should be as long as they need to be, as long as they're not like, I don't know, like 12-hour movies where they don't edit anything, And this movie is a prime example of, like, they could have done a lot more. And to me, the best part of the movie was a part where they were emulating the Blair Witch. There's a part where they go into town and they interview
2 people doing archival work.
And they interview people about trying to find out what's going on. And then they also interview the town historian. I thought those 2 segments were really, really good. Yeah. And it was actually the best part of the movie. Like, you had this one guy, and like, all of them were such funny characters. And you have one guy, and he was talking about, like, his friend gets bloody noses all the time because he's a bleeder. And there's all this, like, funny stuff, like, you can't say her name. If you say the witch's name, she's gonna target you. And it's like you're calling her to come target you. And it was just so funny, and so, it was so good. It was like, wow, this is what the whole movie should have been. And then I would have at least said they did a good, like, parody.
Well, they did a good job. They did such a good job. I thought they were better than actual news shows that do these like when they're having some kind of event, let's say an election, for example. They do on-the-street interviews. And, they did a really good job with them, I thought. And they would have done a lot better as news people than what they were doing. being in a movie and playing play pretend. So.
Yeah, did you remember anything that was funny to you? Did you remember what was your favorite townsperson?
No, they just all ended up saying something funny, just weird, like, oh, did 2 people get killed? Really? Oh yeah, I guess it's kind of dangerous to live here. There's something really weird here because there used to be witches here. That's what they were trying to do anyway, get some background on these 2 people that have been killed. That's 1. And 2 would be the history of witches. And when they were in the archives, they managed to find or discover that there was nothing about executing any witches. And they didn't understand that because they had heard, yes, they did execute witches, but it wasn't in the town history. And as far as everything else, it was very detailed.
They kept records, but they just hid them. The sheriff hid them, and then it's really weird because the sheriff becomes like the main, like he's like Van Helsing in this movie.
Yeah, he is.
And he comes and helps them fight this witch.
Because he's been after her all along, his whole family.
He's pretty evil though. Like he likes to kill innocent people because it's what he wants to do, and so he keeps the records and hides them in his house. And see, there were really good ideas in this movie. It just wasn't executed well. And we watched, the only version we could watch was the one with William Shatner and his commentary.
Which was okay. I didn't think it was bad.
Well, I liked it because it was like breaking up the monotony of this terrible film.
Well, they have a few commercials on Tubi too, but...
It wasn't as bad as Corona Zombies, but
no,
it was...
not at all.
It was pretty bad.
That was the worst of them all.
Yeah, Corona Zombies was like... Ugh. That's like something you would make, Safi.
Oh.
So, what ended up happening, though, was that you have this guy and his girlfriend, and I didn't really pay attention to the characters because they were such one-dimensional trash. I
don't think they were boyfriend and girlfriend.
Well, they're some of the worst characters I've seen in full moon movies, besides the characters in Corona Zombies.
Oh,
and
God.
The Van Helsing sheriff comes with them, and they fight the witch. And the witch looks terrible in this movie. It just looks like the professor girl cosplaying as a witch or something.
Well, it was the professor girl.
Oh, I know, but
she was trying to get a DNA sample from
remember,
the body, and she used a bone saw to get into the bone, which I think by that time the bones would probably be all crumbly and like dust, because if they were from that long ago, I would think so, but I guess I was mistaken. But anyway, when she did that, she cut her finger through the glove with the bone saw, and she got some of the bone dust in there, and the bones were of, what was it, Lilybeth or Lillian?
They should have called this Witchouse 2 Witch's Bone or something, because I don't really think Blood Coven was a good name. I guess there was some little explanation where
it's a coven. It was a coven that they put to death.
Yeah, but they said that like they needed the blood of an innocent, and then basically Sheriff Van Helsing kills the girlfriend, and I thought that was fun. I thought that was fun.
I thought it was bizarre.
It was so funny.
I've never heard of anything like that.
He was standing there, and they were standing on both of his sides, and he picks up the sword, and he twists it around without even looking at her and just stabs her through the stomach, and it was pretty hilarious. Like, no, I don't think it works like that. Like, you need to, because, like, swords are really heavy. You need a lot of force to, like, stab a sword through someone.
They're very long and cumbersome. And his was very long and cumbersome.
This fucking sheriff, this Porky Pig guy, he stabs her without even looking. Like, it's like he could do it in his sleep. Like, he probably has, like, practiced it for 1,000,000 years. Like, he's just lying in bed and he's, like, swinging his sword around. And, that's why he's still single and he's the sheriff of town. Because because these bitches don't want to come over to his house while he's practicing his sword magic, and he's like swinging it around and saying, I have to get the blood of an innocent to defeat a witch. How about that? Wachoo, wachoo, wachoo. And then the girl's like, okay, bye-bye, I'm not going to call you.
And I just want, if anybody wants to leave a comment about, have you ever heard of that, having to kill an innocent person in order to get rid of the bad people?
Well, it was stupid. It was just, it made no sense. It was just plot convenience to cause some sort of drama.
At the end, the boy, he leaves the house and just leaves, and that was it.
Yeah, he literally just walks out of the house, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I also think the house was wasted, because this movie's called Witchouse. Where's the house, Safi? Like, they're not even in the house for most of the movie.
They don't show anything.
Like,
little of it.
The house was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as good as the first one, obviously, but they didn't even take advantage of what they had, and that's really irritating. So, in terms of food, I would rate this movie... I think that it reminds me, too, of, like... Oh! It reminds me of... I just cut myself on something. It reminds me, though, of Pop-Tarts. They came out with these brand Pop-Tarts a while back where they were crush soda and root beer soda flavor Pop-Tarts. That's what this movie is like. It's like, why would you want to have a root beer Pop-Tart when you could just go have a fucking root beer?
I don't know. That sounds gross.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Safi, what's your food rating?
My food review is vanilla ice cream with raisins on top.
Ew.
Told ya. And the raisins are just all the disconnected story, and just as a FYI, the boy was the only one. I don't like calling him a man, but he's 20-something. He was the only one to survive.
He didn't really look like a man, though. He looked like a high schooler who was trying to like get into an R-rated movie or something.
He looked very familiar, like we'd seen him as a kid actor.
Yeah, he kind of looked like the guy from the Boogeyman movie, which I don't think he was, but
I don't know.
I would like to watch the Boogeyman.
I'm gonna look him up just to check, because he really looked familiar to me, but no, I just everybody died but him. And what happened was the main professor, because I told you she cut herself and got that bone dust in her hand. Well, I think that contributed her to being a witch. And then she somehow, with her power and the symbol that was on the floor, and maybe some spells, but I don't think we heard them, she drew the other lab assistants into her, quote, coven. And so everybody else, except the blonde girl, who was stabbed in the stomach by the guy who said the sheriff, who said we have to kill an innocent in order to get rid of the bad people, which I've never heard of in my entire life.
Safi, now that I think about it, this movie was actually more like Blair Witch 2, because they kept on switching back and forth between the found footage and the movie footage. Mm-hmm. And they had, of course, in Blair Witch 2, they had the same thing, where you had this research team that wanted to see the Blair Witch or research, and they were doing kind of like a satire or parody, and then at the end you find out the witch possessed one of them. And that's exactly what happens in the Blair Witch 2. So, I don't understand. Like, see, it just shows, like, something is wrong with Full Moon Features, because no man and no company in their right minds would want to emulate the Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows.
Well, I don't know why they would do that anyway. That was a very unique movie. The first one, I didn't see the second one.
Yeah, you did. The second one was really, really bad.
But if everybody knows what that's about, if they've seen it, and then they watch this, then they'll think, like, why is this movie copying?
Yeah.
Why would you want people to say that?
It's
or
fun.
Question that?
It's fun, though. Like, I really wish there would be, like, a good witch found footage movie because none of the Blair Witch movies are. That's for damn sure. And so it's too bad they couldn't have made it work. They couldn't have made it their own.
Now, I didn't care for the Blair Witch. I didn't like the jiggly camera, and I know that was part of the movie.
There was a third one too.
I didn't like it.
And I've seen all three. All three are terrible.
I haven't only seen that one, and I don't even know if I saw the whole thing.
The first one is the best one because it looks the most real. The second one is complete garbage. And then the third one is just so bad you don't even want to talk about it. So, anyway, Safi?
Okay, well, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers. We welcome everybody and your commentary. And if you've seen the movie, did you like it? If any of the questions I ask about an innocent being killed to save everybody else, that, like, I guess the whole town or something, and etc., because I haven't, or any of the other questions I may have proposed, please feel free to give me an explanation. I welcome it wholeheartedly.
And we will be back later today to rank the full moon movies. It'll probably be a short little video because we've already been talking about it the whole time.
Yeah.
And we pretty much agree on everything except for, your bizarre infatuation with Unlucky Charms. So,
well, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out which one was better. I think this movie was better than Unlucky Charms.
Well, this movie was a horror.
It
was a horror movie. Unlucky Charms wasn't even a horror movie.
No, I don't know what it was.
It was your movie.
It was a supernatural movie. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Everybody. Okay.